Good day and welcome to an example of asynchronous learning. This is just one aspect of remote learning, of distance learning that we have, and today we're going to take a look at a couple of examples in part 1 of 2 of student-centered remote teaching. And so this is the introduction to the different components and student to content interaction where we will begin. All of this is from the article featured at the bottom, hot linked, and we will also embed it in different areas for you to read the full article. So, lessons learned from practitioners, from teachers of online learning. So the big questions: what will administrators, teachers, and students need to be ready for school going forward, regardless of the format, whether we're face-to-face, whether it is all virtual? There will, I think, be a need for that virtual piece regardless. And so, what is sufficient to meaningfully change practice? And can we model this idea online, blended learning experience for our teachers, for our students? And if so, what does that mean and what are the implications of that? And guys, time is short, so it needs to happen to make a realistic positive impact for this fall and beyond. So here we see the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Just take a look at that. Think of your journey so far through this change. Think of through the lens of your students, and then what role do we play as educators at each level? What do we play for one another? What do we play for our students? What roles do we play? Where do we come in at each level? So on this slide, you will see the waterfall activity. This is a great, quick, formative assessment for you as the teacher as you are incorporating in a synchronous model. If you're leading a discussion via Blackboard Collaborate or Zoom or Teams, no matter the video conferencing tool, the waterfall activity is a great way. We've seen this featured in PD for adults, and it's engaging every time. So what it is where in the chat you would direct your participants to input their answer in the chat box, but do not hit submit or enter until the teacher directs the class to. It's really good if it's a quick, short answer. Could be a yes, no. It could be any type of response that doesn't require a longer answer for you to be able to get a quick check of where the room is. So if this was in a synchronous setting where we were all on here together, I would pose the question, which I will now. As teachers, what do we most need our students to do in a classroom setting? If we were in a synchronous model, I would ask you in 3, 2, 1, hit submit. Then I would see and I would check, did you respond with the answer I was looking for, which would be engagement. We need our students to be engaged. How do we do that? How do we do it in an online model? Some sort of virtual model will take a high level of intentionality and planning on the front end, and now this we see where we are going. We need them to engage and interact. Student to content interaction all the way to the left of the screen. This is where instructors provide active learning experiences for students. It's meaningful learning, activity plus reflection. That's the key, right? The reflection piece. Then we have student to student interaction. We need to plan how we will structure the learning community and make it clear to the students how they should interact with others in the classroom, because that is a key component. How students will feel connected to one another in a virtual environment. And of course, we have student to instructor interaction. And this is how we create and funnel our communication, how we will interact with our students and them interact with us. So let's go through some questioning. Please take notes if you'd like. This is available for you. Again, you have this article as well. How will my students interact with the course content beyond reading, listening, or viewing lectures like this or webinars like this? How will students engage in the content, and how can they do so virtually? How will my students interact with other students? Beyond completing assignments and assessments independently, how will students work together to ensure that they feel they are a part of a learning community and the opportunity to collaborate? With the tools that we have available to us, how can we be intentional on planning that? How am I going to make sure that they're intellectually challenged and make meaning with others? How can students work with others while they are isolated in their homes or they choose to be in our virtual setting? And how will my students interact with me if we're not in the classroom, or if we are in some ways and then I need them to do work on their own? How will students be able to interact with myself as the instructor? How might you guide student learning while also being flexible and trying to accommodate the different needs? Could be lack of internet resources, could be the ability to navigate on there until they get familiar with it. But what are the expectations? What information do I need to clarify for them? This is how you communicate with me, your instructor. So, student to content interaction. Is it going to be passive? Is it going to be reading and listening to webinars? And not that that's a bad platform, but is that all I'm going to do in a virtual setting? Or am I going to be intentional with the planning and create the opportunities for not only them to do something, but also reflect on it? And so these are examples that teachers who have been working in an online environment have just some quick resources for you, some practical application. After they do a course reading, obviously write a summary, annotate visual on PowerPoint slide, and they can, if we're strategic and intentional, they can also work together on those slides now that we have that space. They can diagram, make an infograph, that op-ed based on the content. These are things that you can build. So let's do this. Let's press pause and let's stop and jot. Choose one, choose a lesson. Let's just get our feet wet on this and figure out how to be intentional with this planning in a virtual environment. How can we find opportunities to strengthen that student to content engagement? And how would you, as the instructor, facilitate that engagement to be better? So I'm going to ask you on this is the same list that they recommend, or at least prime us to think about ways we can get students to interact. Press pause now, take your lesson, and create this. Build this out on your Blackboard site. Build this out in a OneNote if you're using a notebook. But press pause at this time to give yourself this one experience of building. Next, we have examples of student to content interaction after a synchronous lecture, if that's a face-to-face in Blackboard Collaborate or Zoom or Teams, and it's a web conference. And so I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. Let's grab us a lesson, one that we know we need to teach face-to-face. How can we increase that engagement? And so let's take a look at the recommended activities, and these aren't the only ways, guys, but please do yourself the work now. Press pause, thinking through the lens of, this is a lecture, we just gave this, how can I get them to engage? Build this out in your learner management system in Blackboard or OneNote. From now on, guys, I will call that an LMS, as if we needed Another acronym, but a learner management system, Blackboard, OneNote notebook. But press pause and build one at this time. And so the student to content interaction, these are different ideas of learning activities that you can pull into anything. Grab that lesson, grab a different lesson, one that you know you will need them to be somewhat different, and stop and jot, guys. Let's take the time to build it out. After taking this opportunity, you will already be prepared with these experiences and the struggles of what I struggled with, what I didn't. So, can you use one of these at this time to build in?